This strange-looking British fighter became so insanely fast that it hunted flying bombs, and later ambushed the world's first jet fighters. Overshadowed by the Spitfire and Mustang, the Hawker Tempest quietly became one of World War II's fastest and deadliest piston fighters. By the summer of 1944, Britain faced a problem that demanded something completely different. The Royal Air Force didn't just need another fighter. It needed an aircraft that could reach an enemy in seconds, attack at incredible speed, and disappear before disaster struck. At that moment, one unusual-looking machine suddenly became exactly what Britain had been waiting for. The Hawker Tempest certainly didn't look elegant. Its long nose, massive chin radiator, broad wings, and tall bubble canopy made it seem heavier than the sleek Spitfire. Parked beside other fighters, it looked almost oversized. But appearances were completely misleading. Once airborne, the Tempest transformed into one of the fastest piston engine fighters ever built at low altitude, exactly where the coming battle would be fought. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. The Tempest had been prepared for classic fighter combat over occupied Europe. Pilots expected dogfights against German aircraft. Instead, before it could prove itself that way, Britain called it home. A completely new enemy had appeared, and only an aircraft with extraordinary speed had any realistic chance of catching it.
Bronco's versatility is further demonstrated by the variety of potential military and civil uses of its utility bay. 5 paratroopers or 6 combat infantrymen can be transported readily to remote areas. If supplies must be moved from point to point, the OB-10 can carry up to 3,200 pounds. Airdrop of resupply loads has been demonstrated. Medical evacuation is another capability provided by Bronco.
On June 13, 1944, the first German V-1 flying bombs reached London. Unlike every threat Britain had faced before, these machines carried no pilot. There was nobody to frighten, nobody to outmaneuver, and no aircraft that needed to return home. Once launched from occupied Europe, the V-1 simply raced across the English Channel toward its target before diving into the ground with devastating force. That made interception incredibly difficult. The V-1 flew low, presented only a tiny target, and traveled at roughly 350 miles per hour, sometimes approaching 400. Radar could detect it, but by the time a fighter arrived, only seconds remained. Pilots had to spot a dark shape against the landscape, close the distance, steady their aircraft, and fire before the bomb reached another town or city. Imagine sitting in that cockpit. Would you risk getting dangerously close, knowing the target itself was a flying bomb? And this changed everything. Tempest squadrons had only just begun offensive operations over France after D-Day, when the emergency forced them back across the Channel. Their mission instantly shifted from hunting Luftwaffe fighters to chasing pilotless weapons. The strange fighter had finally found the job its incredible speed had been quietly preparing it for all along. The battle against the V-1 quickly became a race against time. Tempest pilots often remained airborne for hours using external fuel tanks, waiting over southern England for the next warning. Then controllers would broadcast a single word: diver. That meant a flying bomb had already crossed the coast, and every second now mattered. Guided by radar, the fighters turned toward the predicted path before diving to build even more speed. Closing on the target was only the beginning. Inside each wing sat 2 20mm Hispano cannons, giving the Tempest 4 powerful guns carrying around 800 rounds altogether. Their fire was normally harmonized to converge at roughly 200 yards. That distance gave pilots the best chance of destroying the V-1's pulse jet, or control system. But there was an obvious problem. The closer they moved to guarantee a hit, the closer they came to a flying warhead that could explode directly in front of them. And then pilots discovered something even stranger. If firing looked too dangerous, some carefully eased alongside the V-1 instead of shooting. Sliding a wingtip just beneath the bomb's wing disturbed its airflow enough to confuse its gyroscopic controls. The flying bomb rolled over, lost stability, and crashed harmlessly into open countryside. It sounded almost unbelievable, yet around 16 V-1s were brought down using this risky maneuver. One mistake, however, could destroy both aircraft instantly. As Britain strengthened its defenses with radar stations, fighter controllers, anti-aircraft gun belts, and balloon barrages, the Tempest became the centerpiece of the aerial response. By the campaign's end, Tempest squadrons had destroyed 638 V-1 flying bombs, about 34% of every flying bomb claimed by aircraft. Speed alone hadn't won the battle. But without the Tempest, Britain's defense would have looked very different. But here's what most people never realize. The Tempest had never been designed specifically to hunt flying bombs. Its incredible performance actually began with another aircraft that almost became a disaster, the Hawker Typhoon. Designed by the brilliant aircraft engineer Sidney Cam, the Typhoon promised tremendous power, but developed frightening structural problems. Several aircraft suffered catastrophic tail failures during flight, while its thick wing produced drag and unstable handling whenever pilots pushed it to high speed. Confidence inside the cockpit disappeared just when it mattered most. Instead of abandoning the project, Hawker went back to the drawing board. The redesign became so extensive that it eventually earned an entirely new name: Tempest. Engineers introduced a much thinner wing with a cleaner aerodynamic shape, dramatically reducing drag at high speed. The aircraft received a longer fuselage, larger vertical fin, and enlarged tail surfaces to improve stability, while fuel storage shifted partly into the fuselage because the slimmer wing offered less internal space. Every major change focused on making the aircraft smoother, faster, and more predictable during aggressive flying. The cockpit evolved as well. Borrowing ideas from captured German fighters, Hawker improved outward visibility with a bubble canopy that reduced blind spots. Up front sat the remarkable Napier Sabre engine, producing around 2,420 horsepower on emergency boost and driving a massive 4-bladed propeller. Combined with the cleaner airframe, it pushed the Tempest to roughly 435 miles per hour, while giving pilots exceptional acceleration and control where most air combat actually happened, below 20,000 feet. And this is the part that tied everything together. The thinner wing wasn't simply about higher top speed. It reduced vibration, improved handling during fast dives, and allowed precise control corrections while closing on extremely fast targets. Those engineering choices made the Tempest unusually stable when seconds decided success or failure. The same features that later allowed it to chase V-1 flying bombs had been built into the aircraft long before anyone knew such a mission would ever exist. In trying to fix the Typhoon's biggest weaknesses, Hawker accidentally created one of the finest low-altitude piston fighters of the entire war. The Tempest had everything needed to become one of the Royal Air Force's most famous fighters. The problem wasn't performance. It was timing. Production moved slower than planners had hoped, even though the Air Ministry had ordered hundreds of aircraft before the prototype had even flown. The first prototype took to the air in September 1942, while the first production Tempest followed in June 1943. By the time frontline squadrons finally received their aircraft in early 1944, the war had already changed. Number 486 Squadron of the Royal New Zealand Air Force was among the first to convert, followed by Number 3 and Number 56 squadrons under Roland Beaumont. They reached combat just after D-Day, and on June 8, 1944, Tempests met German fighters for the first time, shooting down 3 Bf-109s over northern France. Even more impressive, they achieved those victories while still using older reflector gun sights instead of the newer gyro gun sights fitted to some Allied fighters. But then, everything changed again. Instead of becoming another legendary Spitfire over Normandy, the Tempest was pulled away almost immediately to defend Britain from the V1 campaign. It had arrived too late for the war everyone remembered, and too early for the future waiting just ahead. Once the V1 campaign began fading, the Tempest finally crossed back into mainland Europe. Its squadrons moved forward to Volkel in the Netherlands, an airfield that had been heavily bombed before the Germans withdrew. Buildings were shattered, craters covered the landscape, and only repaired runways kept operations alive. From there, the Tempest started fighting the kind of war its designers had always imagined. This is where its speed became even more valuable. Armed reconnaissance missions carried pilots deep behind enemy lines, often using 2 45-gallon drop tanks to stretch their range. One section flew low, searching roads, railways, canals, and airfields, while another stayed higher to watch for enemy fighters. The moment something moved, the hunt was over. 4 Hispano cannons did the talking. Trains became favorite targets because destroying one locomotive could paralyze an entire railway. Trucks carrying fuel disappeared in quick cannon passes. Barges moving through canals were attacked before crews even understood what had happened. Parked aircraft on German airfields received the same treatment. The Tempest rarely stayed long enough for defenders to react. It struck fast and climbed away before heavy guns found the range. That was the philosophy behind every mission. The goal wasn't simply to destroy everything in sight. It was to cripple movement. Every damaged railway, burning truck, or abandoned aircraft slowed Germany's ability to fight, proving that the Tempest could win battles long before enemy fighters ever appeared. And then the battlefield became even more dangerous. During Operation Market Garden, Tempests attacked German anti-aircraft positions protecting the bridges around Arnhem, Nijmegen, and Grave. Those guns threatened transport aircraft and paratroopers, so someone had to silence them. The Tempest accepted the job, but flying low meant entering the range of almost every flak gun Germany possessed. Several aircraft never came back. The losses taught an unforgiving lesson. German fighters remained dangerous, but flak was everywhere, around railways, roads, bridges, and troop positions. One pilot later remembered how a single 10-week period cost his squadron around 20 to 25 pilots through combat losses, wounds, and removals from the front. Speed could outrun enemy fighters. It could never outrun shells already flying toward it. Even so, the Tempest began dominating the air whenever Bf-109s or FW-190s appeared at low altitude. During the Ardennes offensive, German fighters returned in greater numbers, hoping to protect advancing ground forces. The Tempest answered with fast dives, heavy cannon fire, and relentless pressure. At the same time, it continued smashing railways and transport networks supporting the German army. In December 1944 alone, Tempest units claimed 52 German fighters and destroyed 89 trains before facing the Luftwaffe's desperate New Year's attack during Operation Bodenplatte. By the war's closing months, Tempest squadrons had earned roughly 239 confirmed air-to-air victories, excluding V-1 flying bombs. Low altitude had become their kingdom, and almost no piston fighter performed better there. But just when the Tempest seemed unstoppable, another revolution appeared. Germany introduced the Me-2 6-2 jet fighter, the Arado R-234 jet bomber, the tiny Heinkel H-162, and even rare high-speed aircraft like the Dornier Du 335. These machines were faster than any piston fighter in level flight. Chasing them the old way simply wasn't possible. Yet here's the twist. Me-2 6-2 pilot Hubert Lang later called the Tempest the jet's most dangerous opponent because it combined exceptional low-level speed, sharp handling, and devastating firepower. Instead of trying to catch jets at full speed, Tempest pilots invented the rat scramble. They raced toward German jet bases and waited for aircraft returning to land, when lowered landing gear and reduced speed made them vulnerable. One of the masters of this tactic was David Fairbanks, the highest-scoring Tempest ace, who chased and shot down what was long believed to be a Me-2 6-2, though later evidence suggests it was probably an Arado R-234. Geoffrey Walkington later destroyed one of Germany's new Heinkel He-162 jet fighters during its landing approach. The Germans quickly answered with massive anti-aircraft defenses around Rhine-Hopsten. More than 150 quadruple 20mm flak mounts guarded the approaches, and 7 Tempests were lost in only 1 week. The RAF finally ended the rat scramble, but the Tempest had already proven something remarkable. It had adapted to fight the jet age before the piston era had even ended. When the war ended, the Royal Air Force selected the Tempest as its standard fighter, while waiting for newer aircraft like the de Havilland Hornet, Gloucester Meteor, and Vampire. It became the last great piston engine fighter for several squadrons before the transition to jets finally took over. Its biggest enemy had never been the Luftwaffe. It was time itself. The Tempest arrived after the Spitfire had already become a legend, and just before jet aircraft completely changed aerial warfare. That unfortunate timing kept it from receiving the fame its performance deserved. Even so, few aircraft proved themselves in so many roles. It intercepted V-1 flying bombs, defeated German fighters, tore apart railways and convoys, and even developed tactics to hunt the world's first operational jets. Its incredible low-altitude speed made every mission possible. That strange-looking fighter wasn't simply fast. It became one of the most capable piston-engine aircraft ever built. The Tempest arrived too late to become another Spitfire, yet it mastered almost every mission it received. Its incredible speed, crushing firepower, and ability to fight everything from flying bombs to jet aircraft ensured one thing. History may have overlooked it, but pilots never underestimated what it could do.